Welcome, everyone, to the L7C Podcast UFC edition. That is right. The UFC portion of the L7C Podcast is back, which means we have our mixed martial arts expert returning to the L7C, Mr. Chuck Marlowe. How are you doing today, sir?
I am doing fantastic. How are you doing today, Martin?
I am doing well. First off, welcome back, man. It's been a while. I think the last episode you had was the Amanda Nunes episode, which she became the undisputed GOAT. Like, it's been a minute.
Yeah, that's all. That's dating back. It's been some months. We've missed a lot. A lot has been going on in the UFC. A lot has been going on in the combat sports world, just in general. So, yeah, I'm here to fill you guys in. It's been so much. It's been a great set of fights lately. A lot of movement's been happening, getting a lot of new faces in on all the belts. People are rotating in, and people are dominating and submitting themselves for the new PFPs. We got some new PFPs.
But man, Chuck, let's start doing. We're gonna highlight some things that you wanted to talk about that's happened since you've been gone. Just giving your thoughts on some of these fights on these cards that have happened. And the first card that you wanted to talk about was all of these are back, but UFC 290. There were three matches in particular you wanted to talk about.
Yes, sir. So UFC 290 is headlined by Volk and Yair Rodriguez. You had Moreno and Pantoja on the co-main, and Rob versus Driscus. That was the second to co-main. Really great fight. When you start looking at it and breaking it down, Driscus du Plessis is showing why he's going to be one of the next people to worry about when it comes to that middleweight division. You look at the strikes, it was 32-74 in favor of Driscus, 45% to 63%. When you start looking at those total strikes landed and the rate that he was landing, I think Driscus just overall he's performing better, and now that he had that surgery on his deviated septum, he's able to breathe a lot better. And in order to fight someone like Robert Whittaker, you really are showing that you're on the next level and you're ready to take it there. And that's why they gave him that fight against Sean Strickland. So he's going to be going up for the belt next at UFC. I can't remember what UFC it is. I think 296 or 297, but he's going to be coming up for a belt here soon. We'll see what he can do against Sean Strickland, but we'll get more into that later on.
Awesome. Back when you were watching 290, and we're going to talk a little bit about 91, 92, 93, and Fight 94. What are you looking for during these UFC pay-per-views? Are you looking for a dominant champion? Are you looking for potentially, that person's going to be the next big thing? Like, what things are you particularly looking for when you watch these pay-per-views?
Yeah, so I'm gonna compare it to WWE. You're gonna be looking for those risers, those young rising stars on the up and up. Looking for someone who's gonna take over, maybe potentially. So you look at those fighters who maybe are on a good win streak and they're like building up a resume against fighters. Every time they go up for their next fight, they're fighting someone better, and they're proving that they're better and that they're sharpening their skills each time they go out, and they're showing that they can make constant improvement. And then you're looking at your champions, your people like John Jones, your people like Islam Makhachev. You're seeing them fight against other high-level fighters and looking like they're just dominating them, and just like, okay, yeah, he's really the real deal. He's beating fighters who beat fighters. You know, it sounds kind of weird saying it like that, but like you're looking for a dominant champion who's fighting people that are taking everyone else out in the division and dominating them as well.
Awesome. All right, Chuck. Next card you had 291, which this one there was only two particular big matches you wanted to hit on.
Yeah, so you had Blachowicz versus Pereira, and you had Justin versus Dustin. That's going to be a tongue twister already. But yeah, you start looking at it and you get into that fight with Pereira and Blachowicz. Pereira finally moved up. He showed what he needed to show, that he can handle that level of weight. He can take punches from those bigger fighters. It was 82 to 112 total strikes. It showed that he can had good takedown defense. He showed that he was able to not get any damage on the ground when he was taken down, working with can't think of his head, Glover Teixeira, being able to work with that veteran and get his ground game nice and polished for moving up in that heavier weight, going to fight for the title. But we'll talk about that later on because that's the next big thing coming up here next Saturday. Then you want to move over into Dustin versus Justin.
Mm-hmm.
We're just going to say Gaethje versus Poirier because I'm going to keep getting that tied up. But that was a short fight. It was short and sweet. Justin Gaethje outstriked Dustin just completely, and he set up that high kick with the feint, and it was beautiful. It was like magic. The way you just saw Dustin's body drop, the kick connected up top, and he's just showing that he has a high level striking and just working with that crew, him, Usman, and the rest of those guys, Rose Namajunas, and them just all together with that striking coach that they have. They're just overall polished team. But let's see if they can all get back to their level of fighting as champions.
So good thing you brought that up, the word champion. These two have been champion level fighters. What's next for both of these men?
Well, both of them they're journeymen. That's where they're at in their career. They both have had multiple title shots, but just couldn't capitalize on them. They both couldn't hold the belt. But there's still those fighters that can always go up and compete for the belt. They're always someone who's entertaining and they're fighting those high level fighters. You just want to see them take that next leap and get a belt. Mm-hmm. Justin isn't getting any younger. Dustin definitely isn't either. So hopefully they can turn the page and get a belt in that division.
Fair enough. So then we had 292, where there was three fights you wanted to hit on.
Yeah, I wanted to hit on the up and comer. You look, like I said, you look for those young rising stars. Ian Gary, dude, just straight up dominated Neil Magny, who is a journeyman in himself and a UFC veteran who's been beating fighters. Like I said, you want to see the fighters beating fighters, and you want to see those young players or young fighters going up against some high level fighters and showing that they dominate those fighters who beat other fighters in that division. And Gary just outstruck him 111 to 51, 65 to 55%, 91 significant strikes to 27. He's coming out of Ireland and he's following that Conor blueprint. He sometimes is too cringy and tries to be Conor too much. He needs to worry about being more himself. Because he has that natural Irish charisma, but he just needs to hone it in and figure out what his piece is. Don't chase being like Conor, be your own man. I really love what he's doing. And that fight that had a lot of hype around it because in the press conference, Magny was like, hey, I'm going to beat you like I beat my kid. And he was like, that's not funny. We're not going to talk about like beating kids and stuff like that. And he just took it so personal. Like when you had that Michael Jordan, he was like, well, and I took it personal.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Magny did. Ian Gary did there. And he took that fight personal and he dominated him. He made him look like a kid in there. And it was beautiful. And moving on into another domination later on in the co-main, you had Zhang versus Lemos. I'm going to highlight this one quick because this is just straight up dominant by Zhang Weili. When you start looking at the numbers, she set a UFC record, 296 to 29 total strikes. 296.
That's crazy.
I don't think most people really fathom how much that is, but you think about it, it's 3 5-minute rounds. That's 25 minutes. And if you're looking at all these other numbers that I'm throwing out today, to put up 296 to 29 is a huge disparity. And she landed 83% of her punches at that. 6 for 7 on takedowns, 83% takedown percentage. She had a total masterclass. And she had I don't remember how much ground control time she had in there, but she straight up dominated her the whole fight. Zhang put on a masterclass, and that's what you like to see out of your champions. You want to see them just dominate people, and that's a fighter who's not even on her caliber, who should have been fighting for the title, and she showed why. Segueing, you had the fight of the night, what everyone looked forward to. It's O'Malley time. Dana's new poster child, his new Conor. His new man who's going to get ticket sales and get money and revenue in his pocket. When you look at that fight, it was short. It was sweet. He set it up beautifully. A lot of people are drawing the comparisons to him and Conor because of the showmanshipness I don't think he's really on the level where he has showmanship, but he has that natural charisma. He's
Mm-hmm.
he talks, he has the mouthpiece, he has what he needs to be able to sell fights, and he's just an overall high level striker. And he showed it there when he set up that beautiful jab and just put him down. It was just a nice, beautiful straight right down the middle. Put Aljamain Sterling out. And that's what I said. I said you want to see. You want to see your younger fighters taking that next step, that next leap. And he did what he needed to do and got the job done. There's a lot of pressure on him. He said that himself. And I'm ready to see who he fights next in that heavy, like heavily loaded bantamweight division, which we'll get into later. But he just set it all up beautifully.
Yeah, because especially with like trying to be the next Connor and all that, the Connor thing worked because he was winning and he was really good. Like you can't be a household name if all you do is talk and lose. Just for any upcoming UFC fight, you got to
And
win
that's what Connor's
matches.
doing now.
That is what that's exactly what he's doing now. He built that reputation though, but now he talks, but then he just hasn't won a meaningful fight in forever. And then you had 93 with Strickland versus Adesanya.
Yes. That's the only fight I want to highlight from 293 because that fight right there was just not what anyone expected. But I called it
Mm-hmm.
out. I know I reached out to you guys. I told you guys to put your Sean Strickland money lines. I said Sean Strickland by knockout. He had him in the second round. He almost put him away, got saved by the horn, almost won a lot of money there. But I had him because he was like a plus 800 underdog going up
Yeah.
against Izzy. And I was like, I'm betting that straight. And I put like $10, a quick $80. Sean Strickland, thank you for the money in my pocket. But anyway, yeah, you will start looking at the fight. It was 94 to 137 total strikes. You have 53% strikes landed to 35%. And that's where the huge disparity is 35%. So Izzy had a lot of volume. Then if he still landed 94 hits only at 35%, his output was crazy high, but the Philly shell defense by Sean Strickland was absolutely beautiful. He made Izzy just look useless as a striker, which no one's seen before. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, if you hear all the fighters coming out of Sean Strickland's camp, all he does is spar. He spars the most out of any UFC fighter, and they put a mouthpiece in on him, and they put it in on some other fighters that are in training. And what the UFC did was record how many times they're hit when they're sparring or when they're training and getting ready for fights. He was hit the least out of any UFC fighter, but he also sparred the most out of
Mm.
any UFC fighter when it comes to training for fights. And as you can see, it works really well because no one can hit him. And that defense, that Philly shell just looked beautifully. I've never seen Adesanya look like that before going up against someone else. And it was beautiful to see by Sean Strickland. I want to see what he can do as a title holder now. I want to see him defend that belt against Dricus du Plessis and show why he's that high level fighter. And this is where we see if he takes that leaps and starts dominating other fighters. Let's see if he has a good title reign. I believe he can.
So then with the more well-known fighter in this, Adesanya, it's he said that he was going to take some time off from fighting. What would be next for him?
Well, yeah. So taking that time off, he's going to revisit his camp because, like I said,
Mm-hmm.
he got embarrassed. We've never seen him look like that. He's going to revisit how can he attack that Philly shell. You got to look at it that he's most likely if he goes on and Sean Strickland wins, he's going to have to fight him again at some point. So he's going to have to learn how to attack that Philly shell and how to attack Sean Strickland. So that way, when he comes back, and he's most likely going to come back and go right for another title shot, unless he doesn't have enough volume where Dana's like, hey, look, I think you should fight this number one contender or
Mm-hmm.
number two contender, and then we'll let you fight. But as you know, Dana is Dana. He was probably like, all right, we'll set up a rematch because no one's ever seen that before. You lose like that, and we know it's going to sell. So he'll probably get right back into it like any other fighter. So he's just going to take that time off, revisit his camp, train harder than he has before, and come up with a new game plan and see how he can attack Sean Strickland next time.
How long do you think Adesanya is going to take a break?
At least a year.
Hmm.
I don't think anything longer than that. Because when you start looking at fighters who take breaks, only exception is John Jones. But Conor McGregor, that's just one to name off the top of my head. Just alone, you see fighters take time off, they come back, they're not the same. You need to constantly be fighting. You need to constantly be sparring and training, or else you're going to lose it. You're going to lose that edge. And there's people who are constantly fighting and training and trying to get better. And this is something with UFC. This is what a lot of people don't understand. You can't just dip your toe in it and go fight. You have to be
Mm-hmm.
committed to that life and that lifestyle of training,
Mm-hmm.
constantly improving and getting better. So that way, when you go fight, you're at the top of your level and you're just ready to go.
No, I 100% agree on that. Then we're highlighting a fight night, which we do
Yes.
not do so often.
Yes. UFC Fight Night, Shevchenko versus Grasso, the only title shot fight night you've seen in a long, long time. It was Hispanic Heritage Month, so they were celebrating. They had it on ABC. They wanted to give the Hispanic fans something to see. They also gave them their champion Grasso a fight versus Shevchenko, which for this part two, Grasso won the first one, and this one was just as close. When you take a look at the stats, it was 262 to 199 total strikes in favor of Grasso. You had 1-4 in the takedowns, 4 in favor of Shevchenko. You look at that 50 to 57% takedown percentage, and then 84 to 80 significant strikes in favor of Grasso. You had the knockdown also for Grasso, but when you look at it, the ground control time played in partially of a factor when you start looking at the striking number. Yes, she had the stand up. Grasso killed her on the feet, but the ground game, you had 800. I mean, sorry, I said 800. 8 minutes and 37 seconds of ground control time by Shevchenko to 239 for Grasso. But there was no real damage. She only landed like 8 strikes on the ground. That really did something, but they were just constantly going for submissions, playing offensive, trying to put her out. But I think that she really showed that she could at least do a little bit better on the ground this time. But I think that this is definitely going to be a fight that they rematch because it ended in a draw. Shevchenko wasn't really happy at the end with how that turned out. She blamed it on being Hispanic Heritage Month and them not making her want to lose her belt on Hispanic Heritage Month. But she made an excuse after the last time she lost. So I think Shevchenko needs to stop being a crybaby and just start getting mad that she's not winning. I think that's the reason why she's being a crybaby. But like at the same time, she needs to just toughen up, get back into training, use it as motivation, and get better. If you're that high level fighter that we all know you are and you're capable of being, then go show that dominant fashion and don't complain and look for a handout.
Yeah, I love it. I love it on that. I love it on that. 294, we had Usman versus, how do you say his name, Chuck? Kamazat?
I'm not Shemaya.
Yep. For the middleweight championship. And Usman, to some surprise to some, he took the loss in that one.
Yeah, took the fight on 10 days' notice. It
Yes.
was
Yes.
originally supposed to be Khamzat versus Paulo Costa. Costa got an infection in his elbow, had to get surgery, had to call the fight off. You're going to see a common theme on this UFC card. You look at the strikes, 58 to 107 total strikes, 63% to 75% landing success rate, 4 for 12 takedowns on Khamzat with 7:16 of ground control time for Khamzat. But he did this with he broke his hand in the first, so he says. I forget if they confirmed it or not yet, but he said he broke his hand in the first round. I'm gonna give it to him. I believe he probably did because he didn't go out and he didn't attack in the second and third round as much as he did in the first round. But he just showed an overall dominant fashion. Khamzat is showing why he is one of those risers on the UFC rankings right now in that middleweight division, and he's showing that he's a young flyer. This is what you want to look for in your young UFC fighters and your young stars. Dominant, great post fight speech, and he's great getting the crowd behind him. He's showing off that he's a great fighter, and I think we'll see him definitely going for a title shot coming up here soon. He's definitely next in line. I don't see anyone taking this man out. Once he heals up from that hand injury, he'll probably be right back at it. The man is an animal. He wants to come to the UFC to kill everybody. He wants to smash on every opponent. He says it all the time. Smash everybody, kill everybody. And he shows that with the way he goes out and fights at such a high level. He just pushes the pace and makes you just empty your gas tank very early. For Usman, you know, this is the first time you moved up to middleweight. You showed that you can definitely handle the middleweight fighters, but you ran into a train of Khamzat. We'll just see what you do next. You're going to have to fight some more fighters to get your way back up there, but you definitely got to re-hit the drawing board, buddy.
Chuck, how hard is it for fighters to take, like, you're just in camp and then you get a call like, hey, do you want to be in this big fight 10 days notice? How hard is that for them to prepare for them to get a camp together, like for them to study film on a person in 10 days? How hard is that?
So that's the thing. If you're not constantly training and you're not constantly trying to improve, it's going to be really hard. If you're not in shape, it's going to be really hard and it's going to show. I don't think that it showed that he was out of shape or anything. He easily can fight 3 rounds. We've seen him fight 5 rounds multiple times his whole career. But yeah, it's hard. You get that call, you decide, you're making that decision, like, and the UFC understands. But if you're willing to make that bet and bet on yourself, it's definitely a good call for some people, and it's definitely not for others. You got to think about it when you weigh in the factor. Some people don't walk around at the same weight that they fight at.
Mm-hmm.
So also, if he's walking around at like 200, 210, like he's going to have to cut like 35 to like 25 pounds, depending on how heavy he's walking around.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just it's not feasible. It's hard. People don't understand how hard it is to cut weight. They're sitting there putting their bodies through a lot of different tremendous stress, but then you're also having to train at that time. You're having to watch film. You have to constantly study and see what their tactics and tendencies are. You're gonna have to pick up on different things, try different things out on different people. You're gonna have to bring in people to spar with that are gonna fight at that same level that fighter's gonna fight at, and you're really gonna have to try and hurry up in that 10-day notice to get your mindset in the right like style, and that you're gonna fight this person. Because when you're training for a fight, you're training to fight a certain person. So your team is technically like they're constantly scheming different things and putting up different game plans against you during training. So that way you're getting ready and your body's and your mind is ready for that type of fighter. So it's hard to do in 10 days notice and really get your mindset ready for fighting someone, especially someone like Khamzat who has a tank like no other.
Then why do fighters, if it's for that much, why do fighters take that type of fight? Like when they know that it could end up more badly for them than not.
So when you look at fighters like Usman, who are at where they're at in their career, where they're losing, they need to bounce back. He knows that this is a train that he's going to eventually run into in that division. Okay. If he keeps knocking out and beating other fighters, he's going to run into Khamzat at some point. Why not just get it done now? And that's how some fighters see it. They're like, well, let's get it done now. I don't have to worry about this fighter later on because I showed that I could beat him. But it just didn't work out in his favor.
And then you had Volk versus Islam on this card too, and this was not that. This was quick.
Yeah, this one wasn't close. This one was not like the last fight. People were hoping that it would be. I mean, I hoped it would be. I was hoping for a 5-round slugfest with just great high-level fighters. But Islam showed that he improved. He showed what you want to see out of a pound for pound. For someone who wants to be a number 1 pound for pound champion, he showed what you need to see beating another high level pound for pound fighter. So this is when you talk about the greats, the legends, people making names for themselves to be in the Hall of Fame. He's fighting another pound for pound fighter who's dominating other fighters, and he's dominating him. So that high kick he set up, everyone lately with these high kicks, I don't understand. They're setting them up beautifully. Everyone's falling for it lately. You think about it by now, everyone's going to start training and being prepared for it. But it just slipped through his guard and it just got him. Islam just straight up dominated. He showed that he had the high level striking. No one expected him to knock him out with a high kick. You expect him to wrestle and ground and pound and dominate him. But He showed that he's on a different level. He showed that he's working on his game as a whole. It's MMA, not just wrestling. And he showed that he can do more than just wrestle.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So, Chuck, going from all these matches that you've highlighted that have happened the past couple of months, now rankings wise, I know the rankings. Obviously, UFC has the rankings. Obviously, champions up top, and then usually number one contenders, things of that nature. Which division are you most interested in, and which division do you also look at the rankings and like, I have this person ahead of this person, if we're being honest?
Bantamweight division, always bantamweight division. When you're talking about the loaded, like the bantamweight division is such a high level. Like there's all these fighters can be champions. When you look at Aljamain, Rob, Henry Cejudo, Corey Sandhagen, Petr Yan, Marlon Chito Vera, Song Yadong, Rob Font, Dominic Cruz, and Pedro Munoz, those top 10 right there alone could all hold the title right now. But there's a man right now at the top who's gone through some of those fighters already, but he is going to have to go through something now. He was hunting the top. Now he's at the top and he's being hunted. So I want to see what Sean O'Malley can do. If you are the Conor McGregor, like if you're the next big thing for UFC, if you're the next John Jones, you're the next Volkanovski, the next Islam, if you're that next person who's going to have a dominant title run like people like Kamaru Usman and Woodley, and when you think about all those different fighters, you're going to have to start killing all these fighters, just going through those lists, and you're going to have to go through them again and keep going through them and just dominate all these fighters. So I really want to see what Sean O'Malley does next. I'm buying into the hype. I'm feeding into it because I think that he is a great fighter in that division to just dominate and keep doing what he's doing. I want to see more. Moving into the other divisions, middleweight, got a new title holder, Sean Strickland. A lot of people really aren't expecting him to be there. No one expected him to dominate Izzy like he did. Let's see what he can do. Let's see if he can run through that division. He's going to have to worry about somebody named Khamzat Chimaev, who's sitting there at number 8, who's really should be jumping up probably to I'd say, maybe number 3. Maybe I put him up there. Maybe number 4, put him over Jared Cannonier. But I want to see if Sean Strickland can have a dominant title run. Let's see if he can dominate up there at his age. Then you move to Jamal Hill up there at light heavyweight. You've been sitting there for a while now. You got Jiri and Alex Pereira about to fight for your belt. When you get back from injury, do you dominate? Can you fight those fighters? And now that John Jones isn't there at light heavyweight, you're going to see that belt moving around a little bit more than what it usually has. And I want to see who can hold the belt, who can put on a dominant run, who can show that they're that emerging light heavyweight that deserves a great title run.
Fair enough. Do you agree with the men's pound for pound rankings with Islam number 1?
No. You know who was my number 1? John Jones. I think John Jones has just showed in his career that there's no one that can really contest with him. Islam, it got kind of close with Volkanovski. People argue about the first fight. I mean, Volkanovski's also been in a little bit of some slugfest himself, but I don't think that him beating Volk should put him up there at number 1. Yeah, I want to see more out of Islam's resume. I want to see more of what he can do, and I want to see if he really deserves that number 1. I need some dominating wins. John Jones is a dominant fighter.
No, fair enough. When you think about what's coming up, we actually have some stuff coming up. UFC 295. Talk about a person who Izzy has had battles with. He's going to be he is the main event. Prochaska versus Pereira.
Yes, sir.
What, and this looks like it might be a very close fight from Onmaker's perspective. What are your thoughts on those two being the main event and where they're at right now? Like what are your thoughts on that?
Jerry's been dominant in that division, that light heavyweight division. He was supposed to fight Jamal Hill for the title. He got hurt. He got hurt. Relinquished the title. Jamal Hill got the title. Jerry was on a very great rise. He was on a very great rise, got a very bad injury that required him to take almost a year off, if not more. And Alex, who's moved up, he made a lot of noise in the middleweight division. He held the belt, lost the belt. He moved up and he's ready to attack something different in his life now. And after him training with Glover Teixeira, putting on that weight, I think he's more healthy. He feels comfortable sitting right there at 205. I'm really ready to see who takes that next step to dominate that light heavyweight division. Like I said, I think whoever wins this fight goes on a dominant title run. And I think that they're going to show that they're ready to take it to that next level to try and get up there with for the pound for pound rankings. It's the fighter of who wins that fight are going to try and go up in that top three for pound for pound. I think honestly, Alex will take it to that next level. I think this is something he wants. This is also something he wants for Glover, not just for himself. And I think that he will go above and beyond to get what he needs. This fight has great warrior mentality set on it when you look at the samurai versus the tribal Brazilian man. And I think that the marketing for this is great. But I'm ready to see this fight. And I think I have Alex Pereira winning probably by knockout. Because I think now that he's getting better and more comfortable at that weight and that level with the ground game and everything else too, I'm ready to see him take that next step as an MMA fighter.
You also had Surgery versus Tom, their fight, and you said both of them. This is the interim heavyweight interim title bout, and you said both these guys need a win.
Yeah, I mean, both of them are on great paths right now. They're both ascending right now. They're both moving up on those rankings. And they're constantly moving up. Yeah, I think number 2 and number 4. I can't remember off the top of my head. I know they both sitting up there. 4. Yeah, they're both sitting up there. So that next fighter potentially moves on to a heavyweight title shot. I know you obviously got Stipe still somewhere around there, but it depends on if Stipe wants to fight still right now in his career. If he's going to retire or not. Depends what John's going to do. But if John wants to do one more fight and retire, or what he like. And they moved that fight recently just because John Jones got that torn pec. So we're going to have to wait and see. Maybe they go for a title shot next because Dana doesn't want to sit around and wait for John, and John fights that next fighter who has the belt. We're just going to have to wait and see. But I think that whoever wins that fight is going to put themselves up there in that top, and they're going to either be up there for a belt next.
And you brought up John, which we have not talked about, that John Jones suffered an injury.
Yeah, has a torn pec. Muscle came completely off the bone after wrestling and training. Going to be an 8-month healing process. He had to get surgery, get that all healed up. But what are you going to come back at? Does that affect you as a fighter with that type of injury? Does it affect your punching power? Does it affect how you can wrestle? And those are two things that are very dominant in his fighting career and the way he fights. So it just depends. Does that affect his striking, and does that affect his wrestling? The things that make him a dominant fighter. And we're just gonna have to wait and see. That's gonna give him a lot of time to heal and get a better training camp together and get his body in a better shape. But we just gotta wait and see what happens.
Well, that is very, very, very interesting. Another fight on this card. I wanted to highlight the women.
Andrade versus Mackenzie Dern. Mm-hmm. Two fighters who they're at weird points in their careers. They had a lot of losses, but they're not able to say a lot of losses. They had some questionable losses that they should have won. Like they fights that they should have they're better fighters than what they fought at that level. Mm-hmm. They definitely fought to the level of their opponent, and I thought that they're a lot better fighters than what they showcase. And I think that's going to be a high-level fight because they're both really great grapplers, and I think that that's going to show in that fight, and I'm going to see who's going to be the more dominant fighter. Is Dern able to succumb the strength of Andrade, or is Andrade going to show why she's dominant and show that she can overpower Mackenzie Dern and her wrestling. So I think that's going to be a high level grappling fight. I think it's going to be pretty good. Maybe the better striker wins in that case, and they don't look to see who's better on the ground.
Doug, with you highlighting the women, just want to ask for like the casual fan, who is now that Nunes is not in the picture, like who is that next? I know I've asked before, the next mainstream female star in UFC. I feel like there still hasn't been an established star yet.
I know who my favorite is right now out of the UFC women, and that's Zhang Weili.
Okay.
Give me the China woman. She's killing it.
She's the
To
current
quote the
stretch.
quote Colby Covington, give me the China woman.
Oh God. Current champion right
She's
now, 24-3.
20, yeah, exactly. 24-3. The record speaks for itself. She's beat fighters like Rose Namajunas, who's shown off their high level fighter. She's gone through some of that division already, but I think she's a dominant fighter. The 296 to 29 total strikes, like that's crazy. I don't even think Amanda's had fights like that. I mean, I know she had some high level fights where she output opponents in striking total, but she didn't have numbers like that before. I think Zhang, now that she's really using her wrestling, because I mean, have you seen her muscle? Have you seen her pick the video of her pick up Shaq?
Oh yeah.
She's
Oh,
strong.
yeah.
She's strong as shit. And I think that was one thing that really helped Amanda Nunes was she was strong as shit. And I think that Zhang Weili, no one's going to be able to touch her strength. She can either touch you and put you out like it's nothing, or she's going to just dominate you on the ground and just beat your face in, ground and pound the whole fight. So I'm really want to see her just dominate the women. I want to see her move up and down throughout the divisions and hold two belts. I think she's capable of doing it. I'm just waiting to see when she does it. And I'm excited for Zhang. I think Zhang will be the next big thing in the women's division. I think she's going to make herself. She's going to go up, try and go for Amanda numbers. I think, in my opinion.
Then why don't they strap the UFC propaganda on her and shoot her to the moon?
Well, you know, I think Dana is going to work his way there as more and more as he starts to learn that. But he's also not really a big fan of wrestling, so we'll see. He's also friends with Trump, so who knows? Maybe he's got a thing against China. Um, but we'll see what he does. I don't know why Dana doesn't really market her as much as he could because she has a humongous fan base in China. Humongous. I mean, you got to think about all the people who are over there in Asia in general, and that's a big part of her following. And so I think we might see a UFC China card here soon with a lot of the up and coming Chinese stars. And really, I think just any of the Asian stars right now that we have in the UFC. So I see that potentially down the road if the marketing keeps going well for her and if she can keep on pushing the way she is. I think that fan base in Asia would be great to be tapped into because they love their combat sports. And that following would be huge for the UFC and for Dana White. And that would sell some tickets for sure. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens there.
Fair enough. Speaking of UFC and ticket selling, there was one person who we highlighted during a couple podcasts ago with Francis Ngannou leaving the UFC, signing his new deal where he was at, getting the bag. He did have his boxing match with heavyweight boxing champion right now, Tyson Fury. And to a lot of people's surprises, Francis Ngannou went the distance, and at points it looked like Francis Ngannou looked better than the champion, and at points looked like he should have won the fight, but Fury won by decision. So, Chuck, what were your thoughts on Francis Ngannou performing the way he did? Obviously, everyone's seen the picture of when Francis knocked Fury down and Ngannou looking over him, and obviously, if that was a UFC cage match, it would have been over because Francis would have been able to pounce on him. So what were your thoughts on that?
Cameroon, stand up. But no, Francis. You shocked me. You shocked the world.
Mm-hmm.
He should have definitely won the fight. I don't even know where to go with that. He should have won. There's no way in Sam's hell he shouldn't have won that damn fight. Judges, fuck you, you suck. But that's just judges. You can't leave it to judges. Just like you said, if this was a UFC fight, he would have pounced on him and he would have killed him. He would have straight up obliterated and mauled him. Tyson Fury even had to cheat in that fight to get across. I don't know if you saw the video of the elbow he threw. It was a blatant elbow, didn't get called, no point deduction, no nothing. But it didn't even phase Ngannou. I mean, he's taken elbows before, taking punches from Cyril Gane. You're obviously going to be able to eat an elbow from Tyson Fury, who's just peppering up people and jabbing them. He's not a power puncher. He's a striker. He's a point fighter. And even his point fighting didn't win in this fight. When you start looking at the total final punch stat reports and stuff like that, I think Ngannou won. No one expected him to make it that far in the fight. No one expected him to knock him down. Yes. You're knocking down a high-level boxer.
The champion.
They're supposed to be the greatest heavyweight of all time. Supposedly the greatest heavyweight of all time. And you have a UFC fighter. I want to just say, as a mixed martial arts like performer, Francis Ngannou was finally the MMA's greatest representation of MMA in boxing.
Dana let him go. Dana let him go.
You're right. And I was listening recently what Francis was talking about with him in the PFL, and they were like, yeah, go ahead, pursue this too. They want him to get his money. It's when people see stuff like this, it really makes Dana look like a shitbag, because he is. But you have the PFL who's telling Francis, yes, you're going to be our fighter. You're going to be our number one guy. We're going to pay you like our number one guy. We're going to allow you to go pursue other fights. They also said that they would let him pursue a fight against John Jones in the UFC.
Mm-hmm.
They said they don't care. He's still the PFLs, but they won't care if he ventures out and makes his own money and he makes big cards and makes big fights, because they know that's going to be great for him and that's going to be great for the sport, and that they're going to be able to push out other stuff for him. And I don't know. I just think that what he's done in marketing himself, because everyone counted him out, including myself, on being able to negotiate a deal and get something done. And he showed to the world that if you bet on yourself, that's all you need. And he bet on himself, and it's just cashing in right now. And I can't wait to see what's next for him. I hope maybe eventually we see him versus John Jones. I don't know. Just got to wait and see. I really, really love what this is for Francis. With the merger between the PFL and Bellator coming up here soon too, they're going to get a lot more heavyweight fighters into that division. And I really just love to see what we're going to see for Francis Ngannou next. Him being able to work on his boxing and his striking now, that's just, you know what Mike Tyson just created? Yeah. Mike Tyson's created a monster. And this man is about to go up against these MMA fighters with that high level striking, to show that he can strike at that level with the boxer, and him have to go up against these other MMA fighters. He's going to kill. That man is going to murder some people. And I am looking forward to watching every single fight. Francis, I'm sorry I didn't bet on you. I'll say it here first. But he showcased well that he's the real deal, and he's not to be joked with.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting with what other fights he takes going forward in the future, and
if he could do a rematch.
He could do a rematch. I mean, he could put it up. It could almost be like the Rocky movies where Rocky fought Apollo the first time and he didn't win and all that stuff, but then the second time he challenged him for the title and Rocky won. Like, now with that, if Ngannou catches him, he could win the championship.
Oh, he definitely can. And then look what that will do. He'll set him up with other fighters, against Deontay Wilder, probably against Anthony Joshua, against all these other boxing stars, and then that's going to push him out even more into the PFL. And it's just going to market him so great. His marketing that he has in the future is so great, and the money that he's getting, the guaranteed money, and the money from boxing, the money from PFL, he's going to get so much money.
That's why I really wonder if those two, because that's the fight I wanted to see these past couple of years with Jones and Ngannou, what the betting lines would have been, how close those lines would have been.
I think out of naiveness, they would probably be minus 400 favorites. John Jones to like a plus 3 something, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Francis, because that knockout power. And I just think with the way that John Jones fights, they're gonna boost him up there. But I think it's a lot closer fight than what we thought it was before. Now there's no question that people are now like that, and that's the thing that this does. It builds more hype because it's like, all right, he's shown that he can strike against strikers. Maybe he can strike against John Jones.
So if they wanted to get Francis into these UFC fights back on like a UFC card, is that more a Dana thing, or is that a TKO people telling Dana, hey, suck up your pride, go talk to Ngannou, get him, and come on, man. Because I'm just looking at UFC 300 is going to be, like, they have to have something big for UFC
for
300.
Sure. Oh, for sure.
And if John Jones isn't healthy by then what do you do?
It is. So what it comes down to, it is a Dana suck up your pride thing, but it's also TKO's letting Dana just have the free will to do what Dana does, just like he's done before because it's worked so well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's definitely a pride thing. Francis has come out and said it. He said he'll do it anywhere, anytime, any place. But it's just going to come down to Dana sucking his pride. And Dana's a very, very, very prideful man, and I doubt that he swallows his pride in order to get what he wants, or what the people want, in that matter. But I think that Francis, he's definitely put the ball in their court with a lot of the interviews and stuff that he's done recently. But it's really showing that Dana doesn't care as much as people would like to think that he does.
Chuck, anything else, man? You had to cover a lot of stuff on your return episode back, but you've got everyone back up to speed.
That's really all. We missed a lot. There's been a lot of different fight nights and things of that nature, but that's the nature of the beast. A lot of other fighters moving around, a lot of young and up and coming stars we finally get to see and fight. I'm ready to see what these fighters can do. Bo Nickel, look out for Bo Nickel. That guy right there is crazy. Yeah, I don't know if you've seen that knockout in like the first minute, dude. Oh my gosh, Bo Nickel is gonna be something crazy. Look for that name. Keep watching out for Bo Nickel. But yeah, no, UFC is crazy times. Fighters moving in, fighters moving out, fighters moving up. Seeing some people retire and get out of the UFC. Seeing some people get in and move on up. So I'm just looking forward to these things that they put together. And like you said, UFC 200 or 300 down the road. Let's see. I'm so ready for that card because that thing has to be loaded with at least maybe 3 or 4 title fights.
Oh, yeah. You have to have multiple co-main events, then a big main event to end that one.
Oh, for sure. That card is going to be loaded. And I'm not going to say anything, but I'm definitely buying that card.
Fair enough. With that being said, thank you everyone for listening to the L7C Podcast. The UFC portion is back right before the end of the year, so you can get back to listening to Chuck talk UFC on here. Make sure you follow Chuck on all social media platforms, especially Twitter during the UFC fight nights. As I say, every UFC pod, if there's times where I'm out and about and I can't watch the fight, I just put notifications from Chuck's tweets. And I feel like I'm watching the fights because he does a great job analyzing each and every fight from pre-show to the main card. Make sure you follow Chuck on his YouTube and his Twitch. And yeah, make sure you give the guys some love. And with that being said, it's the L7C Podcast signing out. Thank you for listening to this episode of the L7C Podcast. Be sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on all social media platforms, and we'll be talking to you guys soon. Take care.